You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. If you're new to the show, we release brand new conversations with unconventional money makers every single day of the week. So wherever you're listening, be sure to go subscribe or follow the show so you never miss out on an opportunity to learn how to make more money. Today on the show, we're talking about ADHD and how to get focused, because focus is really where the difference between people who are successful and unsuccessful. There's never been a time where we're more distracted. There's more things pulling at our attention. So focus is a superpower these days, as it always has been, but even more so nowadays. And it's with my now new friend, Skye Waterson. Skye is an ADHD strategist, coach, and founder of Unconventional Organization. After being diagnosed during her PhD, she developed science-based systems to help entrepreneurs and execs stay focused, follow through, and scale without burning out. So I'm super stoked to get into this topic because I think it's really relevant to today. But before we jump into that, if you are an entrepreneur or solopreneur and you're using multiple softwares for marketing, email, forms, calendars, SMS, reputation management, all the above, you might be doing it wrong. You owe it to yourself to go check out High Level and their all-in-one platform for marketing and automation so that you can get back to focusing on what you know how to do best. They've created an amazing tool that is somehow as simple as it is capable. So join over 3 million other businesses and go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis, GoHighLevel.com/Travis for a free 30-day trial to see what High Level can do for you. Now, without further ado, Skye, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you for talking about this topic. It's something that's very, very important nowadays. It's like, it's not necessarily figuring out what to work on. It's actually working on it. And
Yep.
I love, I've seen this around. I forget who said it the first time, but I've seen it a couple of times now where it's like, it's never been easier to be successful in business in terms of like availability and opportunity, but it's also never been more difficult because there's more distraction than there's ever been as well. So I think this is
Yep.
a much needed topic and probably why you talk about it so much, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's a massive passion of mine. It's something that I've struggled with and, found solutions for. And I've seen people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on something they never implemented, and I don't want that for anyone.
Wow. Never like programs or software. Like, what do you mean spend $100,000?
Yeah, like, they hired really expensive coaching system software combos and their business didn't grow
Yeah.
because they didn't do the work. And that's always the one piece that gets missed is we can get the best strategies, we can get the best systems, we can talk to ChatGPT and figure it out. But at the end of the day, it's that consistent revenue, that focus, and that time that we need.
So let's go back a little bit in time here, Skye, and tell me a little bit about how you made your first dollar ever.
hmm Yeah, so I was thinking about this because of the questions. I made my first dollar doing a paper run. So I made my first dollar just a classic paper run. But then I will say when it started raining a lot, I ended up hiring my sister at a rate that was not a good idea.
Yeah.
So I got the hiring down, but not the rate of hiring.
Hey, she agreed to it, right?
Yep, yep, yep. No, definitely. But I definitely think she got more than I did at the end of the day.
Yeah. So were you always pretty entrepreneurial then?
No, I was a real like nerd. So I was very, academic. I wanted to be an academic, but it was later on when I switched over to entrepreneurial, I realized how much of that was sort of in a similar vein, in terms of being independent, in terms of, having projects and trying to reach particular goals. It was very similar, but not entrepreneurial. My family wasn't entrepreneurial, so I didn't really know about it.
Yeah. Was your family highly academic then?
Kind of, yeah. My dad was in banking and my mum ended up being a therapist. And yeah, so it was more from that, traditional sector.
Yeah, they very much valued education. Obviously, you're
Yes,
working on a
it was all
PhD.
about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So a PhD was kind of like the holy grail of like our daughter's made it. She
Yes.
has a PhD. So what did you end up going to school for?
So I went to school for law and clinical psychology. I studied for both, ended up going more in the psychology route. Didn't do clinical, but went more into the academic space, and then kind of bounced around doing different papers and things like that, burning out, trying to figure out what happened. And it was really when I started my PhD, that I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to figure out what's going on because some days are great, some days are terrible. What's going on? So went to my learning center. They did a bunch of tests on me and they said, we think you have ADHD, which I'd taught about, but hadn't really, the idea of it being a thing you could get as an adult, later on in life, it was just wasn't as much of a commonality back then.
What, I guess, what can be done if you feel like,
Hmm.
regardless of whether you've been officially diagnosed with it or you have been, bro
Hmm.
science diagnosed with it, from the people closest to you,
Yeah.
what's the best path forward?
Yeah, so I will say I work with, 50% of the people I work with don't have a formal diagnosis because it's expensive and it's a long process. I work with the executive functioning side of it, so you don't necessarily need one. There's two things you can do. You can get diagnosed, you can get medication. That can be awesome. It can also take a long time and not always work perfectly for everyone. So it's a bit of a journey. And then the thing you can do pretty much immediately, which is what I teach, is you can learn strategies and systems that work for your unconventional brain rather than the traditional systems that don't take into account working memory struggles, distraction, time blindness, things like that.
Yeah, that seems to be what the path forward should be more, rather than, I don't know. I tire of seeing, like, not to say that some people shouldn't have a pill to take care of some of these issues, but I struggle to see the long term value when it's just blanketed across an entire industry and given as a one size fits all solution to a problem that is by definition nuanced. To your point, is like, your everybody's brains function differently and the mind functions differently. There seems like there should be different solutions for people available rather than just like one size fits all. Take this pill and see me in 30 days.
Yeah, I definitely think a multitude of different ways of working with it is always going to be the best. And one of the benefits of the systems is that they will work all the time. They won't run out,
Right.
there won't be a shortage of them, that kind of thing.
There's no side
Um,
effects.
yeah, there's no side, well, except for productivity, and money. But in terms of like medication, I mean, I say do whatever you need to do, whatever's going to work for you. I don't take medication personally. I want to be as ADHD as possible to build as many strategies as possible. So that's what I do.
Yeah, well, because I think when it was first introduced, it was introduced as like a, a bad thing, as a complete negative. Like, this is a disease that you have, and you're just gonna have to learn to live. Like, you know what I mean? Here's a pill, solve this
Yeah.
problem. But in
Yeah.
reality, the more people that I talk to, some of the most successful people that I know are either formally diagnosed or self-diagnosed with ADHD, and it's really acted as like their superpower, their core superpower. And if they just medicated that side of their brain and suppressed their body's ability to, regulate serotonin levels, they would not be the person that they are. They would not be as successful as they are because they're so focused on, well, this is a problem, we got to solve it. It's like, well, not everything
Hmm.
is always that way. It just means that you have to build in a solution that's going to work better for you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's a rapidly evolving scenario. And yes, the official diagnosis of ADHD, you have to go to a psychiatrist. You'll find it in the diagnostic, mental disorders book, and there has to be a consideration that is a problem for you, which is one of the reasons why a lot of the people that I work with don't have a diagnosis because they know that yes, the systems, the way their brain works is different and it needs different systems, but they are very successful. And then I teach them and they become even more successful. And so it's harder to get the diagnosis.
Yeah, and I struggle to see with what the good that it does to focus on only viewing things as a problem rather than viewing them as like a potential solution, and then
Hmm.
like you said, figuring out the path forward for you, specifically what's
Hmm.
going to work for your brain and how can you use this to your advantage rather than,
Hmm.
suffering as a victim of the thing, using it as the thing that actually helps you do better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the reason that, I mean, for us, that's the focus that we have is like,
Mm.
okay, whatever you decide to do, whenever you decide to do it regarding diagnosis and medication and all that kind of stuff, you're still going to need those systems. You're still going to need those strategies. And if you're in business, you're definitely going to need those systems and strategies because one of the reasons I love working with business owners, but it's also tough, is there's no one to make you do it. There's no boss to
Yeah.
say it's due on Friday or else you're out. And that means that there's a lot of intrinsic motivation and a lot of not lying to yourself about what's truly urgent and truly important. And that's the stuff that I think is, it makes a big difference.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. What do you, when you're sitting down with somebody, what are some of the first things that you try to walk people through as maybe exercises to help them start working through these things?
Yeah, 100%. So the very first thing I walk people through is a system to figure out if you jump in your day and everything is on fire, everything feels urgent, how to identify what's truly urgent. I actually give this away. You can DM me at Unconventional Organization on Instagram. You can message me makes money and then I will give it to you. And basically what we do is we go through a step of going, okay, let's brain dump what's in your head. Let's get rid of all the gunk and stuff that's in your head. It's surprising how often people have like literally so many tasks in their head, like 50 to 80 tasks in their head they're not thinking about. But let's not look at your other, emails and things like that. And then with the list that we have, let's look at what needs to be done, in the next 24 hours, or there will be a significant negative external consequence tomorrow. There
Hmm.
will be a bill that's not paid. You will be unprepared for an event that is happening. You will not have picked up your kid from school, so that's a problem, things like that. Those are the pieces that allow you to go. For most people, there's less than five of those. And then you immediately get a bunch of time back. And then the next thing that we do is we go and say, what is the thing that's really going to help you make money?
Sure. So there's things that are urgent and there's
Mm-hmm.
things that are important.
Mm-hmm.
And typically I see like kind of a quadrant that you can, place certain things in
Yes.
certain, because like if you only ever focus on the urgent and you never
Mm-hmm.
do the things that are important but not urgent, then you're not moving the business forward either, right? Like you're not thinking
Exactly.
about this thing that's happening. Like this might be the biggest needle mover for your company, but like you said, nobody's telling you to do it, and there's not a deadline
Mm-hmm.
or due date. So if you only focus on
Exactly.
the things that need to be done today, or else this thing might happen tomorrow, then you're never going to move the needle in the business in the long run anyway.
Well, the interesting thing and what I see, because what you're describing is the Eisenhower matrix, not designed for ADHD. Unfortunately, with working memory struggles, it's a bit hard to mentally break down everything at once.
Hmm.
So we want to do it like line by line, row by row. And so when we're looking at what I see from most of my clients is they will be doing a bunch of stuff that is not truly urgent, convinced that it is truly urgent and they have to do it today. And what that really is doing is it's just a pile of stuff that is hiding those truly important things because it's too boring, it's too confusing, it feels scary, it feels bad. And so a lot of what I'm doing is I'm clearing away that stuff and saying, you have three truly urgent things to do today. You can knock that out in an hour. Then what are we going to do?
And that's kind of where you focus on the important things.
Hmm.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
writing a
exactly.
book or something like that is like, well,
Exactly. And
I
then
don't
how
got
to
to get
do
that
it.
done by Q1 or whatever. It's like,
Yes,
well, but I would like to get it out. And if you don't take time to start writing,
do it.
it's going to be a
Yeah,
decade in the future with nothing ever having been written.
exactly. And then we talk about all of the ADHD strategies about how dopamine deficits and all that kind of stuff to actually get you to do it in a way that doesn't have a ton of resistance. Because a lot of what I do, it's not helping you to white knuckle and push more effectively. It's about helping you to do things in a way where it actually does flow very easily for you. And a lot of people don't even know that that's a possibility.
Yeah. What's kind of the next stage after you kind of figure out what's urgent and start,
Hmm.
knocking out these smaller to-do lists that are much easier to get through. What do you do next?
Yeah, so once we figure out what's urgent, and we convince you not to do the stuff that's not urgent and not important, because that's really important, then we're looking at those big important things, the hiring, the book writing, the partnership building, those kinds of things. And so from there, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, first of all, why don't you want to do it? I worked with a client that is running a, multiple $1 million business, and there was a bunch of those things that just aren't happening. And so, we go through and we say, why do you not want to do it? And then, generally speaking, it's somewhere in that boring, confusing, emotionally salient state.
Hmm.
And if it's boring, we go, okay, let's give you a reward for starting, which is really unique to this kind of unconventional brain, but is based in the neuroscience of how our brains work and how our brains react to dopamine. The reward at the end doesn't really work. And so we go in and say, let's give you something that's going to help you start. And then if it's too confusing, we'll break it down. We'll go, okay, what are the steps in it? Let's start by doing that. If it's too emotionally salient, we usually break it apart. So there's three things: reward, break it down, break it apart. Of course, the implementation, how that works, how that fits for you, that's where that personalized support comes in.
Hmm. Where do you find most entrepreneurs are struggling?
It's interesting. I think the boring is big. And sometimes the problem is people refuse to do something fun, which sounds strange, but it's actually a big problem. People will be like, I don't deserve a break. Oh, I don't deserve like a nice like coffee and a chocolate biscuit before I get started. It doesn't have to be a chocolate biscuit, but some version of that in terms of your sensory experiences. And once it's that's done, that one, once we knock that one out, the confusing one we usually get through pretty quickly. Then the emotionally salient one becomes the big one. There's usually something in there
Can you
that people
define
don't want to
emotionally
do.
salient? What is it, and how do you recognize it?
It's just basically another way of saying, I don't want to do this because I'll feel bad. Like the last time I did this, I got told off, I got rejected. What if people don't like it? Like writing a book, I don't want to write a first draft of a book because I'll feel awful if it sucks and it didn't turn out the way I wanted to. And so sometimes we have to recognize and break through that piece as well.
So you say when if it's emotionally salient, you break it apart.
Yes.
So what does that
Yes.
mean? What does break it apart mean?
What that means is you're going to go ahead and you're going to say, okay, which is the piece that is emotionally salient? Because it's not always the whole thing. It might just be the sending of the thing or a particular part of it. So we might say, okay, well, if we're breaking it apart, you have to write the plan. So I've worked with somebody who recently became an attorney, and she was applying for jobs. And so we were talking about, okay, we have to find the jobs, draft the jobs, apply for the jobs, send the application. Send the application is the scary part. So we can break those others into pieces,
Hmm.
do them in chunks, and then schedule time to do this maybe with another person to just be like, no, it's good. Let's send it. Let's send it. Let's send it and do a bunch of them at once.
I see. Got it. What has been the
Mhm.
most difficult part for you, having ADHD and being an entrepreneur in terms of your ability to focus?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been that shiny object syndrome for sure. I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. And for me, having business coaches, which I've had my whole career, which has been amazing, has helped a lot because being able to have somebody and be like, am I on the right track? And they're always like, look at the data.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, yes, this is what I have to do. Because the reality of growth, especially if you want to grow to that $1 million point, is you need to focus. And that is the problem, is usually when I see people, they have like 10 ideas, half a dozen possibilities, and they're trying to do everything at once.
Yeah. Do you use anything like I guess supplement wise to help you focus a little bit more? Like is it good to have whatever caffeine or nootropics, or I take this thing, or what is are you just kind of like, hey, whatever helps you focus, do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I don't take any kinds of supplements regards around that, but I will say having an exercise routine helps.
Hmm.
So some kind of movement routine is good. We know from the research it supports working memory. So if you can get out, you can get some movement in, that can be a very helpful part of your day.
Okay, got it. So you're more the most natural ways that you can do this, try to do it.
Yep, that's what we teach.
Yeah. Where in your business now are you looking to like take this? Like, you've been, you've built something that's super unique, that's really needed, it's necessary. Where do you feel like you're going to end up with this?
Yeah, so I mean, my passion is helping business owners who have these unconventional brains to get to a point where they are able to focus, be present for their families, and still make that consistent revenue and feel that security. That's my passion. That's what I want for everybody. And so my goal is to grow something that is, able to, I'm in the process of writing a book. I want to give everybody these strategies and I want people, to be able to just go from like, what, this is crazy to like, yep, this makes sense. This is what Skye teaches. Like we
Yeah.
all do this and then all have that experience. Like that is my passion. Anytime I see somebody, break through that and feel that focus balance growth, it is a good day for me.
How do you balance the idea of content consumption versus content creation? As entrepreneurs, I mean, entrepreneurs are really creators at their heart anyway. They're just creating businesses instead of art.
Hmm.
But then now it's kind of like, if you are an entrepreneur, you almost have to be some sort of a quasi creator in some way, because you're
Yeah.
supposed to be on social media. You're supposed to create this, you're supposed to create that. So you
Hmm.
kind of get something that happens to me sometimes is I kind of get stuck in these like consumption loops where I'm
Hmm.
trying to figure out, hey, best practices, what's everybody doing? How can I emulate that in my content? What can I do? But then I get sucked down the vortex of, social media and content, where I
Yep.
just waste an hour consuming stuff that I probably have no
Yep.
business consuming, and while I should be creating. But I can't just
Yep.
like silo myself and forget about everything and not log into social media to see what's working, because that's my business. I have to be on social in order to run the podcast and do well.
Hmm.
But does that make sense? So I guess
It
how
does.
do
It
you set these
does.
boundaries and
Yeah.
make sure that you're
Yeah.
consuming to the degree that helps the business without harming the productivity of the
Yeah.
business because you get sucked down the rabbit hole?
Well, first of all, I would say we focus on your 80/20. So we figure out what it is that's really growing your business. It might be social media. Social media is always going to be a part of what you do. And I highly recommend finding someone awesome to delegate social media to as
Mm.
quickly as possible. Obviously, you have to go up the ladder of people you hire. But in terms of then, what that looks like, I would say we figure out where your revenue is coming from. Because maybe it's that, maybe it's podcasts, maybe it's partnerships, maybe it's something else, SEO. And then we want to look at how do we build a really, really solid, you're not involved in it as much as possible system around that. And social media is either going to be that, if that's what's working for you. And I've had clients where that is just their main source of sales, or it's going to be a supplement to that.
Mm.
And if it's a supplement to that, then we take it as such and we give it the time as such.
So just dedicate the time that is required for you specifically.
Yeah, and it really does depend on the person. It's like we kind of go in very tactically. So, if you are somebody who says, "Okay, well, I do need to know what's happening on social media because I need to like be on top of trends because reels are really where I'm getting a lot of my lead flow from, my qualified lead flow," then we are going to go in and say, "Okay, you're going to have an admin who's going to review like what's working and give you a report. And then once a week, you and her or them might spend, an hour going through reels and building it, but it's with purpose."
Mm. Yeah. And if you're going to get on it other than that, just know that that's entertainment time. That's not work time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing I always try to remind people about, is that social media is ultimately media. It's not social. So treat
Yep.
it like media time. It's the same thing as watching Netflix. Like, if you wouldn't be
Hmm.
watching Netflix right now because it's in the middle of the workday, then probably don't be on social media just consuming random stuff, because it's basically the same activity.
Yep.
Skye, thank you so much for coming on and doing this today. Like I said, I think I always come back to that concept of, it's never been easier to be successful in business because of the opportunity, but it's also never been more difficult because of the distraction. And if you
Yep.
can
And it
get
doesn't have to
focused,
be.
yeah, if you can figure out some of these things and use some of the tools that Skye's been talking about on the show today, then you can gain that superpower of focus, because it really is a superpower. If you can
Hmm.
focus on something until that task is completed, that thing will allow you to have a leg up on all the competition around you. So, Skye, where can people go to get more content from you, to hear more from you about this stuff?
Yeah, so if you want the 2-minute focus formula, the one that I talked about before, just DM me on Instagram at Unconventional Organization with an S. You can DM me Makes Money and I will send that through to you. And then if you want to find me on my website, you can find me at Unconventional Organization. We have podcast, the ADHD Skills Lab, and we have a lot of really cool articles there as well. And you can also apply if you want to my coaching program where I teach all of these strategies and you're part of a community of unconventional entrepreneurs.
Unconventionalorganization.com. That's organization with an S, not a Z.
Mhm.
Unconventionalorganization.com. Go check out some of the stuff that Skye's putting out. And Skye, look forward to your book coming out. Be sure to let us know when that does come out so we can bring you on the show again and promote that. Because, like I said,
Thank
this is one of
you.
those things that's really, really important for all of us to begin to understand and master. Skye, thank you so
Mhm.
much for taking the time. Everybody else listening, remember, money only solves your money problems. But it's a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems if you got some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you guys next time. Peace out.